This year I decided to do a 250 kilometer FAI triangle. For years I've been trying to do it towards Grenoble first, then heading sort of east and down south to Saint Vincent area, and it means that I have to push towards the west winds in the late afternoon, and the west winds come here every day. It's just how the local system works, because the Alps are on the east side and the flats are on the west side, and the Alps are pulling in the winds, and it always becomes westerlies in the afternoon. Last season my girlfriend suggested to do the first leg of the triangle heading westwards towards the flats, then to Grenoble, and then use that westerly wind to follow the ridges that are perpendicular to the wind, to the valley breeze, to come back late in the day. I've tried multiple plans. I went in my head and I drew them up on XC Planner to see what is possible and how I would be able to do it. Oh la la, hello. Ça va. Yeah, we have horses. So I had multiple plans to do this flight, and as I was going through I discovered that if I do just straight west and then back towards Grenoble, it's gonna be about 300 kilometers in air in the flight time. And that's quite long, because Chabre doesn't start that early. Very few days a year we get that we can start at 11:30. It's really not quite possible to do it before that. So I only have about 8-9 hours in a day to do this flight, so 300 is a long time to do it. I discovered a couple of days ago that you can actually do this flight all the way west and use the westerly most ridges to make it all the way to Grenoble, then connect in Velcro Plateau and come back. And on days like it was a couple days ago with the southeast wind, it's actually very fast flight. It's about 33-34 kilometers an hour, which is quite quick for a paraglider, especially an ENC wing. Up, easy there, big boy. Yes. Oi. How are you doing? Just talking about the flights. Yes. Oh, big boy. Wow. Yeah, we have horses. Yeah, that are very curious beasts. As I went through the plan of setting up the 250 FAI, I realized that I have to make some changes. Stop coming so close. One option was to go more direct from Laragne straight to the west, which is a bit tricky. You need to have a high cloud base to be able to push into the west wind, and not always we have that cloud base to do so. The original option I think might be too slow to manage the 250 kilometer flight, but as I said, I did this shorter flight, 130 kilometer flight, and I used the south winds for most of the flight. And later in the season, when we're gonna have these days of southeast wind, I can use that to go to Grenoble, and by the time hopefully those southeast would calm down and turn into the westerlies as the day progresses and the local breeze comes into it, and then use it to come back. So this video is gonna go in detail how I go about it, how I change my mind, how I'm doing my scouting missions and the scouting flights. So I learn as I go there and fly there and see how it all pans out in reality versus the map. I hope this kind of video helps you to better prepare for your big cross-country goals. This is a really big one. I think 250 is about the limit that Chabre offers because of the specifics of the area and how late the actual flying starts from Chabre. Let's get into it. As you can see here on the map, Alps are on the east side of the flats, and this is how the winds are pulling towards the Alps. If you zoom in, you can see that this yellow area is where the flight will happen, and this is how the valley winds work throughout the day. I looked around on XC Contest, I made my plan, and this is roughly how it looks. I went through the history of Chabre and tried to find a flight that was done towards this area. I only found one, which was done last year. Early this season I went out on scouting missions. I've done a few flights towards the west to see how I can manage to connect the flight. I have a few options how to do it here. This will depend on the day, on the airspace and the cloud base. Let's have a look at the local valley systems and how they interact here. If you look at the map here, the first difficulty of the flight is this yellow circle, which is a call. The reason for that is that the two systems, which is the southeast and southwest, is kind of meeting here, and some days it's no problem and some days it's really difficult to get any height here. If we go in even more detail, this is how the local breeze will come throughout the day. Based on that, I started adjusting my plan. First I made just 2 turn points, west, north and back at Chabre. After researching more in detail, you can see I'm putting almost every single thermal trigger point I can find on the way to make sure I have a clear plan how to go throughout the flight. On top of that, here on the west of Chabre we have a military airspace. The limit here is 2,290 meters, so we have to stay under it if the airspace is active. Most of the days this airspace is not active, but I have to take this in consideration. As you can see in these examples, it is possible to fly even though if the airspace is active, just staying right under it. The altitude limit is just enough for me to cross through, get enough height to move on forward, just using mostly dynamic winds and the local systems here. The reason I want to go west first is because we have the southeast system on the east of Chabre and the westerly system is moving in as the day progresses. So I can use the southeast winds early to move west and then use the westerly system to move up north-northwest. And as the day progresses, that westerly system will move more towards east, and again I can use the same winds, the same system to move back to Chabre, as you can see in this example here. The next difficult part of this flight is the westerlymost part of it. To understand it a bit better, we have to zoom on to this westerlymost point. I call it the island because it looks like it. We're gonna have most likely westerly breeze here. Some days it might be more south, some days more west. So my route options is something like this, crossing through here and here. Ideally, I would connect to this ridgeline here because it works really well with the westerly winds. The route would look something like this. The next decision I would need to make based on the day's situation is how do I come back? Going north from here on is pretty straightforward, as I just can go straight all the way to the most north point of this ridgeline, turn back, and then halfway back I should cross more east to the main ridgeline of this plateau. Now I've done this once before, a couple of years back, and it wasn't an easy thing to do, and I almost bummed out here, and it took me about 20 minutes just to stay in zeros to climb out. So this is one of the options to do it, and then follow back down south, something like this, following these ridge lines. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the westerly winds are moving in, so I can use the dynamics of the westerly winds. As now we're moving into late afternoon, the sun will be going down and we won't have as much thermic activity, so I will be relying on the dynamic lift to sustain flight and keep heading back south. But there is a problem with this plan. As I mentioned early in the video, this route takes about 300 kilometers, and I have to find a way how to do it quite quick to be able to do 300 kilometers. So here's a few other options I have considered. Once I come here to the west, if I have more westerly winds, then the best option is to connect to plateau, move forward north. On my way back, I can go about halfway down, cross towards east, connect to the main ridge, and then follow that all the way back to Chabre. If the winds are still strong from the south-southeast, then I can use the most westerly part of this route, follow the plateau all the way north, then the best option would be to try to connect to the east straight up north. It's a bit tricky one. I might not be able to do that because of the valley flows there. If I manage, that's the fastest route. Alternatively, I follow this ridgeline, connect east after, or more difficult route would be go all the way back south straight and then try to connect near D through the ridgelines here. The problem with this route is that it's pretty high up, and if I don't have the cloud base, then I can't do this transition that easily. As you can see, there's quite a few different route options and quite a few unanswered questions that I will have to answer during the flight based on the day's conditions and what I see while I fly. I have multiple options how to shorten this flight just to make it back if the day doesn't seem to be working super good. I will leave a link in description of this flight plan. You can download it there or scan this QR code right here. This year I will be using Sports Track Live to have live tracking for my flights. Go check it out. You can follow me there. You can see my flights live as I'm doing them, or check out the flight replays like this one that I did just earlier this month. It's a 140 kilometer flight. I did about 1/3 of the route, maybe 50% of the route of this 250 FAI. And I like that this 3D replay shows you a compass right up on top here and the wind direction. This is something different that I haven't seen before. Also, the maps are more sensitive. They work faster than the alternative softwares I used. And the really cool thing about this one is that it works on both phones, on the iPhones and Androids. Give me a follow there. You can see my flights in real time. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. I'm gonna be posting more content about this Chabre 250 FAI attempt. Every time I try and fail, I'll post it up, and let's see how it goes. Stay safe out there. Spring is strong. Have fun. Enjoy your flights. I'll see you in next video.